Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Master the Merge, Automating ChatGPT Prompts. So if you find yourself copying and pasting over and over and changing a few text items, I think you'll find today's webinar interesting. This is the third webinar in our series. With me today, I'm Gordon Jones, the Chief Operating Officer of Decisions. With me today is Derek Hippa. Derek leads our revenue operations team and is an all-around decisions developer extraordinaire. So he helped put all this together today. Couple housekeeping notes. We just completed a training event out in Denver this past week. If you weren't able to make that, well, just join us in Sydney, Australia, August 29th through the 31st. So we have a training event at a great venue, overlooks Sydney Harbor. We'll have another event later this year, likely in Dallas. And that's all of this you can find on our events page, decisions.com/events. Also like to plug a couple of upcoming webinars. We have several more in our ChatGPT series. Later this month, we have a webinar that'll show you how easy it is to take unstructured data, for example, like a spreadsheet that has a lot of data in it, and through the use of ChatGPT, we'll show you how you can create a data type in Decisions, normalize that data, create the right data types for the individual fields, and it's really slick. Also, next month, in September 14th, we have one on creating a chatbot using your own data. And actually, Derek will give you a sneak preview today at the end. So we're going to go through the webinar in terms of how you can take your own data, run it, save it in a vector database format. It's called Embeddings, and pull that data to create your own chatbot with your own data. And we have a couple pretty cool examples. And later in September, we'll be doing a similar example, internal here to Decisions. We get a lot of security questionnaires. We get questionnaires from analysts. We get RFPs, and a lot of the questions that get asked are very similar. So what we're going to show you is how to take data like that. So we have a whole bunch of these old questionnaires with question and answer. And we're going to save those in a vector database and create a little application that will help our team fill out future questionnaires. So we'll use it ourselves internally, and we'll show you all how we built it. So the next three of these webinars are related to ChatGPT, and that third one we'll use Google Bard. So there's several of these models out, different technologies coming. We're going to build integrations to all of them. So that second webinar in September will be using Google technologies. I just learned yesterday what ICYMI means. And for those of you who don't know, like me, who didn't, it's in case you missed it. So we've had a couple of webinars in our ChatGPT series. So the one we did last was document extraction. Really cool use case, taking an invoice, extracting the data, and dumping it into our QuickBooks system. And it's fully automated. So think invoices, think purchase orders, think any document that you use internally. I definitely recommend you take a look at that. And then we had an earlier webinar that had 3 or 4 different use cases about automating processes. And then we had some others. Again, everything you can find on our website. Even this webinar will be posted sometime next week. It's decisions.com/videos to find any of that. And if you have a question, either drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A, and we'll get to it either during or at the end. We'll make sure we cover them all. So today, I'll just have 3 slides on what Decisions is. Those of you who are customers can get a drink. I'll just spend 3 minutes. We'll talk a little bit about our OpenAI module, where to find it, how to install it, and then jump right into our use cases. So today, the general use case is using ChatGPT with our Merge text editor to automate repetitive tasks. We have a couple examples. We have the first one is updating company descriptions within Salesforce. So this also shows our Salesforce integration and updating that information. And we also are using this to send out an email to our sales reps to provide them with additional information for upcoming calls that they have scheduled. And both of these involve calls out to ChatGPT, integrations with Salesforce, and on a final note, I'll say these are all applications that Derek built in a short period of time, generally less than a week, and which involve calls to ChatGPT. But the decisions platform, everything you're going to see today, we've already had there, and it's just hand in glove in terms of automating processes that involve calls to these large language models. So I'm super excited about these use cases, and there's going to be plenty more coming. Again, I want to invite you to our upcoming webinars. We have one later this month, and we'll have 2 in September that follow along in this series. Okay, what is Decisions? We're a software, no-code software development platform with a rule engine, a flow engine, an integration engine. And our chief value proposition is that we allow clients to build complex software quickly without writing code. There's 3 general use cases that we get involved in regularly. The first of these is as a rules engine, a decisioning platform. So think medical claims processing, insurance underwriting, loan underwriting. And the whole idea here is that you're taking logic out of custom code, out of stored procedures, and putting it in a graphical user interface that the people who know those rules can easily edit, change, add, create without writing code. And Decisions is an enterprise class rules engine. We run literally billions of transactions a day for clients. We do trade reconciliation. We're talking high volume, high speed, real-time credit card transactions. So we're an enterprise class rules engine that can manage large numbers of rules at scale. Our most popular use case is the one you'll see today. It's orchestration and integration. We have an incredible integration layer with integrations to all the most popular software applications, but a wizard that makes it easy to create new integrations. The whole idea here is that we can integrate with these software applications like Salesforce, ChatGPT, SAP, DocuSign, Zoom Info, integrating and conduct logic between them and engage end users when necessary. Finally, we can also be used to build end-to-end software applications, and a good number of our clients use us in that way. If you want to learn more, head to our website, sign up for a free demo, and talk to one of our engineers that will walk you through the platform. One final comment before we get into the demo itself. Everything you'll see today that Derek uses our OpenAI module. And Derek, maybe you can explain where they can find that module within Decisions.
Of course. Thanks, Gordon. Yeah, so right here, what we're showing is our designer portal within Decisions. On the left-hand side, we have a couple folders where you would click Settings. And to navigate to where our modules are, you would go to Admin and then Features. Here, what you see in the screenshot is all of our available modules ready for download. As you can see in the bottom right corner, we have our OpenAI module. So you would click Install within a couple seconds. This would now be installed to the environment. If you backtrack a little bit, you would go back to our settings. There would be a new folder created called OpenAI Settings. Upon right click, you would edit, and it would pop up that form in the bottom right-hand corner. So this is where you would supply your OpenAI API key. There's a link in the text that will show you how to access this. If you don't have an account, you could sign up. I believe you get a couple free credits by doing so, but you would create a new secret key, copy it, and paste it into Decisions, and then save. So now you have the module installed, you have the API key available, so you can start using the steps that come with the module. This is our workflow designer, and on the left-hand side, you can kind of see our tool library. We have a folder called integration, which you will now have the OpenAI folder, which will contain all the module steps. In this example, we're using the chat completion step. This is typically when you go to ChatGPT online, you would be using the same step, essentially. You're having a conversation, providing a prompt, it'll give you feedback. So with this step in the workflow designer, on the right-hand side, you can see there's a couple settings. You have the ability to overwrite the API key that you originally set. You could also provide a different ChatGPT model. So right here, we have 3.5 Turbo. You could also do ChatGPT 4, just depending on your account settings. Some inputs to go over just very quickly. You have the ability to continue a conversation within our workflow designer as well. So when you run the workflow, you could start off with a conversation and continue that just like you would online. And then the message piece of it is where you would provide the prompt itself. So you're able to make it static or pass in variables, which we'll show a little bit later. And then finally, these are the steps that come with our module. As shown, we did the chat completion. There's embeddings. You can kind of get models, list models. And then on the right-hand side, you have the ability to fine-tune a model, which is a little more of an advanced use case, but you have the ability to do all this within our platform using our OpenAI module.
All right, thanks, Derek. And one question that comes up regularly with using these large language models is around privacy and security. And OpenAI basically says that if you're using the API like we are, they don't use that data to train the models. So it's not being used, and there's no data leakage between the API call and what they use to train the model. They say they do hold data for 30 days, and that's just in case they have to deal with a legal issue. So there's no retention. The data is encrypted to and fro, and users you have control over your data, and you can delete data associated with your account at any time. All of the vendors here realize they deal with corporations, and I think quickly, again later next month, we'll be showing the Google stuff and talking about their data privacy and security rules and how they handle it as well. Okay, now we're going to jump into the demo itself using ChatGPT with the merge text editor. So again, the whole idea here is that the merge text editor is something that's lived within Decisions for a long time. It's commonly used to create custom emails at scale, but in this case, it works extremely well with crafting a prompt and then inserting variables such that you can repetitively run and automate processes using the merge text editor. So it's been there, and Derek's going to show you how we're using it to talk to ChatGPT. So the use case that he's going to walk through first involves updating company descriptions within Salesforce. This may come as a shock to all of you, but sales reps updating Salesforce and typing in the description of a company sometimes are not the best people to be doing that job. I know, shocking. But what Derek's going to show you is that within Salesforce, he's built a little flow to click a button in Salesforce, which talks to Decisions, grabs information about the company, sends it out to ChatGPT to get a better explanation of what that company does, and then gives the user the option to update it or not. So we're showing Salesforce integration, OpenAI integration, and the updating of records in Salesforce. So that's the high-level overview. This is just an example of the prompt. Derek will get into it. I've talked long enough, so let's turn it over to Derek to show you how that was put together.
Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate it. Yeah, so what we're doing here, as you can see, we're actually in our Salesforce environment, and I'm strictly on a account. We're using the OpenAI account just as an example of using this kind of use case of So within here, we have the account called OpenAI. This is our Salesforce environment. And then in the top right-hand corner, we actually have a button. So like Gordon was explaining, by clicking this button, what would happen is Salesforce calls decisions. It will pass in information about the account. We then run that through OpenAI to get a better description of this account. So high level details, you can see the account name, we have like the LinkedIn information, and then we also have the description. So we actually use ZoomInfo, and ZoomInfo will help enrich this record. A lot of times these descriptions are very vague. They might be old information about the company, and it's nice to be able to have a way to automatically update this information. So what I'm going to do here is click this button. Again, this is calling decisions, and it's going to show decisions front end a little bit. So by clicking this, it's going to open a new tab. This tab actually made a call to decisions. It passed in the details about OpenAI, and currently it's calling ChatGPT to get a better description of this company. So you can kind of see the current information that we had within our Salesforce environment. And then now you can see what ChatGPT came back with. So here it's really, providing a better description of what this company does. And this is very helpful for many different use cases. We have a good understanding of what the company does. We're able to use this information to see if it's related to similar customers that we've had. In this process too, we give the ability for the end user to edit, so they can make edits to this as necessary. And then like Gordon mentioned, there's an approval process. So by clicking update, it will actually send this new description right here and update Salesforce. If you didn't like it, you have the ability to refresh this, so it will then re-engage with OpenAI and see if it can come back with any additional information. So here, I'm just going to click update. It gives me a confirmation. Are you sure? I say yes. So now it actually went back and updated Salesforce, so I could actually close out of this screen. So here I am going to refresh so I could see that new updated description within our Salesforce environment. And as you can see, it was able to pass information back, update this account. So this is available to all the different accounts within our environment. And then I'm actually going to go into our portal. So this is our workflow designer right here. And then I'm going to kind of describe how this works. So we had a form. Salesforce called decisions and it rendered the form. On the back end of the form, we have this flow. And this flow is actually what's calling OpenAI to get a better description. So here we have our step. This is the chat completion. So you can see how the settings are set up. We're actually using our ChatGPT 4 model. We don't want to continue a conversation. We didn't enter anything in the past, so we just clear it. And then this is where our merge text editor comes into play. So you can see that we're able to provide a static prompt. Something that I found very helpful when building these prompts is really three things. One, you tell ChatGPT to act as something or someone. So in this use case, like a business enrichment service. Second, you provide a task. So we want to get a comprehensive description of this company. And then third is what you want your output or response to be. So JSON, and then we actually provide an example. So here's where the merge text editor comes really helpful. We want to make this as dynamic as possible so it reduces any manual entry or any manual work. So no longer copying and pasting into ChatGPT online and then getting that information and going back to Salesforce. It's all automated, and we're able to do that by passing variables into our merge text editor. So you can see we have the company name and the website. This is coming directly from Salesforce. We're able to pass it in and then put it within our merge text editor, and it makes it dynamic. So no matter which account I click that button on, it will always pass that information about that account. So very helpful when it comes to building out these prompts. And all this information doesn't have to be static, but in this particular use case, it is. Sometimes you want to pull information from a PDF, that could be this piece of it.
Yeah, so that top piece is all this prompt engineering you read about, and it takes some trial and error to find the right prompt that can consistently get you the right feedback that you're looking for. But once you've got it, then as Derek just explained, you can run the variables through that. Now, Derek, end to end, how long did this application take you to put together?
This one was actually pretty quick. We worked on the Salesforce integration in the past, so we already had all that information built into our platform. So actually building out this workflow was only a couple hours. I mean, if we think about setting up the Salesforce integration, it's not too complex either, and you could build a process out like this in maybe a couple days, a week at most. But yeah, so just on top of that, so within decisions, we're able to have a defined object. So since we asked for the output to be in JSON, we put that defined object. So now it becomes known within our workflow, and it's really easy to handle the response. So two big pieces, the merge text editor, where you make this dynamic with the inputs, and then having that response be able to be known within the workflow, and you could handle it in different ways. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, Derek. So, sometimes with ChatGPT, you run into those timeouts or whatever. How do you handle that? Or
yeah, it's a great question. In this use case, we're kind of just handling the exception, so the end user will know there was an error. But you could also have this path, this error path, being able to send the information back to ChatGPT. Say, for example, you got a wacky response. You could say, hey, fix the response. This is what my expected output should be, and typically it will correct itself. So as long as you have good error handling within your workflow, this whole piece could be fully automated, and you'll never have any issues with it, with those wacky responses you may see. All right, so going back in, so Gordon, I'll hand it back to you for the second use case here.
all right. So the second use case is just we have an upcoming meeting. Somebody has signed up for a demo on our website, and we just want to prep the sales rep a bit and send him an automated email. He's got a demo coming up. Here's some background information about the company. In our case, we actually also are showing similar companies and similar use cases. For the demo today, we've stripped that out so that we're not showing company specific information. But Derek will show you what this email looks like that we're creating automatically about the company information.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon, for that. So this one's very similar to the use case that we just showed. The only difference here is we actually have decisions calling Salesforce. So the first step is, we have a scheduled job of this workflow where it's making calls to Salesforce, trying to find upcoming events, which are typically like a meeting with a prospect. So from there, we'll get any upcoming meetings, and then decisions will be where we kind of merge those details and kind of craft that prompt. From there, we would send it to ChatGPT to find some product or service or additional details about the company that we already don't have. And then there is a use case of doing embeddings. We're not going to show that today, but finally, we would send that email to the sales rep. So I'm going to jump over to my email. All right, so this is an example of what this process does. We have an upcoming meeting with OpenAI. So this is one of our sales reps conducting either a demo or maybe like a first appointment with a prospect from this company. We were able to have a process where it recognized that there's an upcoming meeting. It gathered, details about the meeting itself, the company, and finally, it pulled the description. And what we were really after is understanding the product or services that this company offers. A lot of this, right, the first piece of it is from Salesforce. The second part is where we actually ran the company details through ChatGPT to get a better understanding of their product and service. Something that's not shown here that could be also useful, we could use embeddings to find similar companies that are customers of ours to this actual company itself, which should actually give the sales rep a lot of prep when they go into this meeting. So overall, we were able to build the whole email within Decisions. And I'm actually going to jump into the workflow designer and show you how this works. So this is the workflow that's actually, doing all of this work. So the first piece of this is on a schedule. We could have this run every hour. It will grab any meetings that are coming up within the next hour or two. So so the first thing it would do is it would make a call to Salesforce. So we're trying to pull events. These are event records within Salesforce. So stepping back really quick, this is our Salesforce environment. You can see this is the event we are referring to in the email. And you can just see basic details about it. You have the subject, who's it with, what company, what type it is. So jumping back to the workflow designer, we're actually pulling this event by using our integration with Salesforce. So for each one of those, what we're going to do is pass it into ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you what this prompt actually looks like. So first thing, the chat completion step, it's very similar to the past use case we just did. And the message here is very similar, but we're after, understanding what kind of product or service this company offers. And very similar, we have a specified output. So we have product details where it would list, different details. Like sometimes some companies have more than one product that they offer. So it's very detailed in this fashion. And again, we have those variables that we pass in dynamically. So this makes it very, very, very helpful. Once we get that response, we're actually crafting an email. So we're building an HTML format that we then send in the email itself. So I'll actually run this to kind of show you what it looks like. So first it pulled the records, it's looping through each record that it finds. It's passing the information currently into the ChatGPT step. So this does take a little bit of time. It's trying to pull back a lot of information from ChatGPT. And then once it's finalized, it'll actually send that email to that sales rep. So you can see it has completed. Went through and sent the email. So I'm going to jump back. So now you can see I have a new email from No Reply at Decisions, and which is very similar. You could actually see that updated response that we did earlier in the demo, and then you can kind of see the updated product or service details that ChatGPT has on this company. It's a very cool use case. A lot of different things we provide, and there's a lot more that we could do with this as well.
Yeah, another comment here is you'll notice, this is the same workflow that's run through, Derek did it just before we started the webinar. He did it again live just now, and you'll see that the product service details are different each time. And if you ask ChatGPT the same question a couple times, each time you'll get an answer that's very close, but it's never exact. So yeah, certainly the case here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, this is, as Derek mentioned, it's a small use case, just providing a sales rep with a little bit of more information before his meeting. A good rep would go to the website, look at it himself, but it doesn't hurt to provide a little more information. But I think the point here is just how quickly you can build these little small tasks that can do a better job and automate some manual work to get your people to be more productive. Derek, maybe we could jump into the build from last month's webinar to kind of walk through the merge text editor process there as one more example.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so for the webinar we did in the past, it was really centered around invoices. So as you could see, I'm actually looking at my email inbox, and I have two separate emails that are unread. If you look at these, there are actually invoices attached. So what we did is we have decisions listening to this email inbox. It's looking for any unread emails, pulling that information in, and the end goal is to look at this PDF and figure out how to extract this information and then pass it directly into our QuickBooks instance. So again, these are the emails. Our system is looking only at unread emails, so I'll mark these as such. And then end goal, let me sign in really quick.
Yeah, while Derek's signing in, this is the use case we presented last month in our webinar. And the idea here is that we have an email inbox where our suppliers send us all their invoices. So we get invoices every month, and most companies do this too. They set up an email inbox for suppliers to email their invoices. So what we're doing here is this flow looks at the email inbox. If there's an unread message, it grabs it, extracts the PDF, does an OCR pull on the data within that. Then we send it to ChatGPT and ask it a bunch of questions. And from that, when we get all the responses, again, put it in a JSON structure and stick it into QuickBooks, which is our accounting system.
Yeah, that's correct. So here I'm actually going to run the process. End goal is to take these two invoices from our email and then pass them directly as bills. So these are actually invoices from a vendor that we use their tool for whatever the reason might be. So running this, I'll start the debugger so you could actually see it live. The first step is it's going to read my email inbox. And in here, we actually have a rule to determine if it's an invoice. This is not always needed, but since it's actually reading my email box, it is, just because, there's a lot of different information in there. So as it goes through the process, the first thing is to read the header. So the header is like the subject line, the from, the to. After you go through each one, it's actually opening the email. It's extracting the details about it. So the PDF, the body, any additional details from that email itself. So once it's complete, it does take a little bit of time, but overall, it's a pretty quick process. It'll go through each email, and this is where, one, we extract the text from the PDF, as Gordon mentioned. So we pass in the PDF from the email, and you can kind of see what the output looks like. So it actually uses the OCR and extracts it. So we're able to dynamically pass in the PDF information to the ChatGPT step. So once this process is complete, which it is, I'm going to step over to QuickBooks and I'm going to refresh. So now you can see there's two separate bills. And if I go back to my email really quick and I refresh this page, you can see now they're both read. So it was able to grab the emails, mark them as read once they have been completed, run through this process, and then output it directly into QuickBooks. So jumping in just real quick to show you how this looks. The first thing is it will open the vendor, and then it's actually going to show you the bill. So once I click this, we're able to pass in the vendor, determine the net terms, the line items. It's a very, very cool process. If you want to see in more depth, definitely check out our last webinar. But jumping into this workflow just really quick so you can see how this works. We first define our prompts up front. They're they're reusable. So like if I use this prompt in many steps, I only have to edit in one spot. So we're doing two separate things. We realized by doing this process, we had to split up the calls to ChatGPT. And the reason why is because we want to be very hyper focused on a certain piece of it. So the first thing we're asking is to extract details, like the high level details, the vendor name, invoice number. And we also provide ChatGPT a list of our vendors. So it would actually find the right vendor by the right name. We recognize these invoices have different names than what we actually have in our QuickBooks instance. So there are times where we have to correct it. And we found that by passing in our vendor list to the prompt was very helpful. But
Yeah,
again,
this is a good, yeah, open that back up there, Derek. I think, again, this is a good case where it takes a while to get the prompt to work exactly the way you want to, but providing additional information like a vendor list, a customer list, or a product list, it improves the accuracy of what ChatGPT sends back, and it'll send it back in the format that's already standardized within your system, such that it all flows through.
yeah, exactly. So definitely a lot of trial and error here. You have to play with the prompts and get it right. But once you do, you could have this fashion where it's automated completely. So we could have this run on a schedule. We have an inbox that all of our invoices go to. So you can have a rule there. You don't have to. Like the rule, like a good example of what the rule could be is like if the subject line contains invoice, but not all the inbox, like for the most part, our accounts payable inbox only receives invoices. So we actually don't need a rule. We just have one for this particular use case. But overall, by splitting the response or the prompts into two separate steps, it makes it very hyper focused. So you get a better quality response from ChatGPT. So it's very important to understand.
Yep, that's another good point, Derek, in that, we've learned that if you send it this information and give it 10 or 15 questions, sometimes you get all 15 back, but sometimes not. And that if you just cut it up and send it all the information each time, but ask it different questions, and if it's more focused, the output is a whole lot better.
Agreed. Yeah, you do have to, there's limitations with ChatGPT. There's a certain amount of tokens that you could use. So that's on the input and output. So if you reduce the input, you have more tokens for your output, which will always give you a better response there.
We had a question earlier, Derek, especially related to the company information use case. How do we know the accuracy? I mean, the real answer is you don't, right? So, the use case we showed earlier is we already had a description in there. So it's always helped. It always helps to double check or put your eyes on the website and make sure that it looks right. However, if in this use case here, right? I mean, these are invoices. So definitely as part of the process, we put it into QuickBooks, but somebody from accounting would open up the actual invoice, look at what's in the system, we get eyes on it. In accounting, sometimes they have the 4 eyes principle. So there would be humans looking at it to verify that it's all been entered in and it all flowed in correctly.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then another question, Derek, how does the workflow identify email as an invoice?
Yeah, it's a great question. It really depends on how you want to go about it. There's essentially 2 ways. So when you think about the header information, right? Say that you have an email inbox that gets a lot of email and you're really only focused on those invoices. If you think about the header is going to be, who's it from? What is the subject? Does it have any attachments on it? if there's any additional details at that header level. So you could essentially put a rule for the header. So in my use case, I said, does the subject contain invoice? This is not always true, but in my particular use case, it is. But once you actually get the email details are when you actually open the email, Decisions is able to read any attachments. So you could have a rule after the fact saying, does the attachment contain invoice? Does it contain a vendor that's in my list? So I think it's really depending on the use case. There could be different rules you put in place. In ours, mine's just the invoice. Our actual accounts payable, we want to read all those invoice or all the emails that come in because they're typically always invoices.
Yeah, and in our case, Decisions, we get about 150 invoices a month from a typical vendor list. So the beauty of Decisions is you could put rules, as Derek mentioned, to check to make sure that it's from one of those. And occasionally somebody may be needed to go in or be notified if you have new vendors or invoices that somehow get missed.
Exactly.
Another question, Derek, did you work on creating these prompts right in ChatGPT? Or so did you do it from the web interface on ChatGPT, or were you doing it on the fly within Decisions?
That is definitely a great question. I think it depends. For the most part, I've done majority of it within Decisions because, I'm actually running it. I'm trying to see what the response is and I will tweak it as needed. I have a couple times ask ChatGPT to come up with a better prompt than what I have. So I typically provide it an example of what I'm trying to do. So again, there's really three pieces to it that I've found to be the most helpful. You act as someone or something. The second part is you provide a task and you try to make it a very detailed task. And third is the output piece of it, how you want the response. You could say JSON, you could say text. You could provide an example. So typically I'll work on crafting one myself. If I'm having issues with ChatGPT not give me a great response within Decisions, I'll typically ask to have online ChatGPT recraft it for me.
And another question has come in. Is this invoice extraction flow available to users? And the answer to that is yes. So you can reach out to sales@decisions.com or Derek@decisions.com, and we can get you a copy of this flow and help you. Yeah, this is a perfect use case in that every company has to do this. Every company gets invoices, and if you're not already using some kind of system to automate it, hey, this I think Derek spent a week on this, putting this together. So it's not very complex, and it's an area where you can show value in automating work. We're a small Decisions is, we're a 300-person company. We get 150 invoices a month, but it still takes a person one day a week to process and manually type in invoices into our system. So we've automated away a week's work every month through this application.
Yep.
All
and
right.
On top of that too, our solutions team is actually working on a build here that should be available in the near future for anyone to download.
Yes. All right. Let's see, a couple more questions. So right now, a question came in to use the ChatGPT module. So right now, if you use the module, you'll have to set up your own account. So they were asking, is it free to use this, or would you have to pay for tokens? So right now, with the existing module, you would need to set up your own account at OpenAI, and it's very easy. you sign up with an email address, a credit card. They give you a certain amount of free tokens, but at a certain point, then the meter starts running. And Derek, I don't know if you know or see how much it's really fractions of a penny per call. It's not very much.
It really is. I mean, we've been going through these past webinars, and we actually have something that's live in our production today that uses the ChatGPT model every single day, a couple times a day. And it's very cheap. I think in total we spend is, anywhere from a couple cents to a couple dollars every week. So if you think about that every month, it's roughly, $20 to $30 a month. So overall, it's by using it, depending on what you're doing, you may charge more tokens, but for the most part, it's fairly cheap to use. So you're paying for the API tokens that you use with ChatGPT through decisions. It's free to download, no charge to actually have the module installed.
And we had another question, just ChatGPT have a sandbox account for development. ChatGPT, no, like if you're building with decisions, I think, Derek, you just keep tweaking, keep testing until you find something that works.
Yeah.
And they charge you whether you're testing, working, or not. But again, it's like fractions of a cent per token, so it's really not very expensive.
Yeah, I would say best practice there. Set a different API key for each environment, and that's what we did. We had like our development API key, our QA, our production, and that seems to work very well.
Another question, can we extract CMS 1500 or UP-04 bill details? If I knew what that was, I might be able to answer. We'll look into that. What I will say is, the invoices that we get are all different formats from different systems, and it's shocking how good it really is. So the amount of work we've had to do to fix or change anything has been extremely minimal. And ChatGPT is just really good at finding the information that you want to update in your system. Another question about, now OpenAI has launched GPT bot. Is Decisions going to add the module as well in the future? Probably so, yes. I mean, we're the dev team, all of this is moving quickly. Like right now, we're working on our Google Bard. Google has some interesting features that that we're looking to implement, and we'll be showing you that later next month. The AWS has their own. There's models that you can find on AWS that we'll be showing. So there's a whole lot more coming, and we plan to, month over month, continue to build these integrations out and to show them to you. There was a question about, what's the risk to use generally available information in the demos? Yeah, I mean, we used OpenAI as an example because we're using their tools. So in that case, I think the risk is low, but it's tricky in that a lot of this information, to show a good use case, we'd like to show, how good it looks in our system but a lot of that is protected and proprietary information that we don't want to share. So, which is why we use OpenAI, because it's their tool. If they don't like what it says, they can fix their own tool. One last, maybe before we end up, we're 10 minutes. Derek, maybe you can give a quick preview of what they'll see next month in terms of, you'll hear a lot about embeddings and vector databases. We'll kind of cover that next month in our webinar, where the example here, though, is we've built an internal chat bot to look up use cases within our own database. So Derek has built a chat bot that has vectorized data within our Salesforce system about the use cases that our customers have to help our salespeople, help our BDRs find similar use cases. We're we're a software development platform. Every customer buys us to build something different, but to educate our people on all of the different things is difficult and tough to find similar use cases. And it's been amazing to see what you can do with these large language model tools. So Derek, maybe you could give a quick preview to sell our upcoming September webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that, Gordon. What we're going to be doing, I'm going to bring over Slack. So we actually built a integration where Slack is calling decisions, and we're going to be trying to search, do like a semantic search, advanced search to find a use case based on using embeddings. So embeddings will take a word or a sentence, vectorize it, put it in a vector database, and then in return, I could actually type in a specific use case I'm looking for. It will use ChatGPT's embeddings and search that vector database. Very powerful tool. These are just a couple of examples that you could use embeddings for. So I'm actually going to pull over my Slack. All right, so what I'm showing right here is Slack. I'm in a particular channel right here, and what I'm going to do is actually paste this message. So I'm going to add use case, which is the app, and I'm going to be looking for a loan origination logic using rule engines. So I click enter, and what happens is it's calling that vector database. It's embedding my text and then querying it against that database. We're hiding the account names here just so, just due to the risk of showing customer information. But you can see how it responds. It will actually compare this to the use case name in the description and return an overall score of how close it was. So this is how vectors work in using the ChatGPT. We're providing 8 separate use cases to be returned. So you could see all we provided was very small text, loan origination logic using rules engine. So, apologize. Let me go back for a second. So by doing that, it's embedding this text and again, querying our vector database, and it's giving a match score. So we could tell it how many results we want to come back. We said 8, and now our sales team has the ability to be on a call with a prospect. They say, hey, we have this particular use case. Sales rep is able to use this to find similar companies that have done this in the past. So very cool. You could do this with many different use cases, but in our particular piece of it, this seems to be the most helpful. Anything you want to add to that?
Here, yeah, what I'd say is, we have this data saved in Salesforce about each client, what's their use case, but it's text blobs, right? And this is where these large language models excel at finding similar, use cases. Using SQL or some of the language tools, we've looked at those and it's pretty iffy, but these large language models are excellent at saying, hey, you've done a similar process at this company. Derek hid the account name, he put the link in, but for our salespeople, we'll be sharing, who that is. But the point here is that you can use your existing data coupled with this to really help your people. It can be small things, and I think small things are the place to start to figure out how to do it, and then you can just grow from there. So we'll be sharing a lot more of these examples in the weeks to come. Later this month, again, we'll be showing an example of using ChatGPT to create data types and to clean data up. Derek is going to show that chatbot in early September. And in late September, we're going to have a similar application where we have a whole database of previous security questionnaires that we filled out. So we're going to build a flow and a little app to plug in the question and see, find the best answer that we've produced in the past to that question. And that second one will be using the new Google module and all of the Google tools. All right, I think we'll call it a wrap. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.